Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Welcome back to the e-commerce marketing podcast, everyone. I am your host, Arlen Robinson, and today we have a very special guest, Sam Mallikarjunan, who is the head of marketing at birdeye.com, the world's leading reputation marketing and customer experience platform. Sam is the former head of growth at HubSpot Labs and taught advanced digital marketing at the Harvard Division of Continuing Education. He is also the co-author of the book, How to Sell Better Than Amazon, which, thanks to the publisher, is ironically available for purchase on Amazon. Well, welcome to the podcast, Sam.
Thanks for having me, Alan.
All right. Well, yeah, Amazon is, you can't go anywhere these days without seeing anything, without being affected or being touched by Amazon.
You know, people don't even realize how much, right? Because not only does Amazon power things like, Amazon.com website, but even if you go to birdeye.com, we're hosted on Amazon Web Services, right? So, Amazon is a huge and very impactful force in our lives. They are.
And, I always have debates about that with people. Is it good or is it bad? They're swallowing up, so many things. And is it, are they helping small businesses or are they hurting the mom and pop spots? I don't know. I guess the future will be the judge of that. But all I know is I'm a big Amazon fan. I've got delivery guys coming to my door every day because it saves me so much time. I don't have to go out buying stuff.
I'm the same way. Not only that, right? Like you it's that trust, it's that ease of use, right? Yep. So, I read a survey a while back on why do people actually use Amazon?
Right.
And it's not actually even because of the price, and it's not, as Jeff Bezos wants us to believe, that they help people make customer decisions. It's one of his famous quotes. Right. It's just because the site, the whole process is ludicrously easy to use.
It is.
You can get whatever you want. It's crazy easy to use. So yeah. I shop at Amazon a ton too. I'm a big fan of Jeff Bezos as a strategic business leader. Yeah. But there is also the rest of the world that there are ways in which we can be competitive.
Right, for sure. Okay, Sam. Well, before we get started, we're going to be talking today a little bit about increasing customer retention and improving the long-term value of your customers or the lifetime value of your customers rather. But before we get into all of that, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your background, how you got started, and how you got into what you're doing today?
That would have to go back. So I would have to go back to, I was the host of an AM FM talk radio show about scotch and cigars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I ended up, the cigar industry, back in the mid to early 2000s, wasn't really technically sophisticated. And so they were asking me, people were like, hey, you know how this internet thing works, right? I'm like, yeah, I know how the internet works. And, can you build this website? And so I built them websites, just to get them rolling. But then, building somebody a website or selling somebody a product isn't enough, right? They have to be successful with it. They have to enjoy it and like it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to sell it to more people in the future, and you're never going to be able to sell anything to those same people again.
Right.
And so they're like, hey, we built the website. We're not getting any sales. I'm like, all right, well, I don't have a background in marketing. I started in computer engineering, and then, I did a little bit in sales, and then I was a radio show host. So I started Googling around, how do I sell stuff online? Mm-hmm. And I found this company called HubSpot. And they had this great blog, and they had these webinars and everything else. I self-taught myself off of functionally HubSpot blog articles, ebooks, and webinars.
Oh, wow.
And then, at some point, our radio show got canceled by the station because not room in the cigar industry for more than one radio show. There was a bigger, better one. And so I built a website called HireMeHubSpot.com. Mm-hmm. And I launched ads targeting people who worked at HubSpot to register for the free webinar on why you should hire me.
Okay.
And it worked. It took me 3 hours and 26 minutes to get a call from the recruiter.
Okay.
And then, that rest bit is history. I was there for 7 years, and had a wonderful career there. And then now the essence of great leadership is trust, right? Mm-hmm. That's when you really boil it down to it, it's trust. My boss, Kip Bodner, the CMO, always told me that if I ever wanted to leave HubSpot, to tell him, mm-hmm. and that he would help me find a really great next gig. And so he and I looked at 144 different companies that fit a certain certain criteria, like post Series B, pre IPO, doesn't have CMO stuff.
Right.
And we found Bird Eye, and so now I'm here. And the reason we had to delay this podcast from last week is because I've just moved to Dallas and taken over the marketing team here.
Okay, gotcha. That is quite a story. I mean, I definitely do applaud you for that effort of getting hired by HubSpot. I mean, that is a true go get 'em story. I mean, you basically had your eyes fixated on where you wanted to be. You created the site and you got their attention. And yeah, so I mean, it's just a testament to the fact that if you want something, if you want to be somewhere, these days and that's the power of the internet. These days there's so many things that you can do to get out there and get noticed. There's really almost no excuse to if you want to get in the door somewhere. I mean, I know, of course, some doors, of course, are a little easier to get into than others, but if you want to get there, you can definitely do that. So I definitely apologize.
I'll tell you the ironic thing, right? So a lot of your listeners have probably read, The Innovator's Dilemma by Clay Christensen, and I have my own little mix on that, right? Which is, it's really easy to be innovative when things are going well and you have breathing room, and it's really easy to be innovative when things are going really poorly and you have no choice. So that's where I was with HubSpot, right? Because I was a college dropout with no significant marketing experience other than literally what I had learned from their own blog. And HubSpot was a company that had a rejection rate of applicants higher than that of Harvard University.
Oh, wow.
So it's literally easier to get in Harvard University than it was to get hired at HubSpot.
Okay.
So I didn't think it was going to work, right? And I had no choice. And so I was able to be innovative. The irony is, if I had actually been qualified for the job, which I wasn't, I would have sent in a resume. I probably wouldn't have gotten hired.
Okay.
It's that's the interesting thing is the really difficult part is when you are actually qualified for the job, still taking that chance, still trying to do something different instead of just going with what everybody else does.
Yeah, that's true. That totally makes sense. Because like you said, if you're qualified, you're going to go through the normal channels, and then you kind of get in the mix, and you still have to try to set yourself apart from everyone else, all of the other hundreds and thousands of resumes that are coming through. So that is definitely a challenge and dilemma. So, the topic for today that we're going to be talking about is, really trying to leverage your current customers' value and, seeing how you can increase your revenue by, leveraging those current customers that you have. And I know a lot of our listeners these days are constantly hearing about this customer retention, that, lifetime value. But, for the average customer, why don't we just kind of start at the beginning and really set a groundwork and figure out, okay, how would an actual average e-commerce company determine the lifetime value of their customers? What process should they take?
Yeah. So, I mean, the math on it is relatively straightforward, right? It's how often are they paying you and how much are they paying you? And then you can get a little bit more complicated and control for things like the rate of discount. You don't necessarily have to do that. The big issue there, right? And then you'll also definitely want to make sure you're controlling for profit margins. So when I say how much are they paying you, you have to add in your profit margin. Right. Starbucks is the classic example that I love to use. Right. So they've got, because Kissmetrics did a great study on them a while back. They've got an average order value of like $5.90 or something. And for a lot of e-com shops, AOV is really what we solve for. How do we get you to add more to your basket, and just get that initial burst of revenue? But you look at Starbucks, one of the most successful companies in the last 20 years, and they have these leather chairs. They've got great Wi-Fi. Up in Boston, they have a fireplace and stuff like that. Right. And it's because if you're a Starbucks marketer, you're not looking at that $5.90. You're looking at the average lifetime value of that customer, which is over $14,000. Wow. So you're not trying to spend $2 to sell $6 worth of coffee and food. You're spending $2,000 or $3,000 or maybe $5,000 to acquire and retain a $14,000 customer. And that is what creates competitive advantage. Because you go into some of the other coffee shops in the world or some of the other options, right? The reason Starbucks has so many locations and they can invest so much in customer acquisition and have such a great experience inside the store is because they're ridiculously good at keeping customers. So that's the primary lesson here is it's, the world of marketing has gotten way, way harder as more people have jumped into it, and also as we've gotten better understanding of it, the real leverage is if you're really good at keeping customers, you can spend more to get customers. Starbucks can spend more to get a coffee drinker and to start coming to Starbucks than any other coffee shop in the world.
Right.
Not because they have a better marketing team, but because their retention team is ridiculously good at keeping them.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That's totally plain, and I understand that analogy with Starbucks. They can afford to spend that extra on their whole ambiance, like you said, the leather chairs, the great Wi-Fi, everything that they do on the interior, because they know those customers that are coming are going to pay for it in the long term. Yes, because they do a great job at it. Most of the customers that come to Starbucks, you rarely hear people that say, "Oh, I used to like Starbucks, but I really don't like it anymore." Everybody I usually talk to that is a Starbucks coffee drinker still is at this time. They haven't really switched. So yeah, they've done a great job at that, and that really totally makes it plain. Now, and that, as far as the average e-commerce, of course, customer, these days, looking and kind of deciding, once you determine what the lifetime value is of a customer, then that can help you determine, all right, what can I do as far as marketing? How big can my marketing budget be? Am I going to be able to afford it based on the value that my customers are going to bring? Can I, increase the budget? Can I do other things? Can I bring on more expensive products? Things like that. Those are always going to be questions. But one of the things that I kind of want to get into is, what would be some strategies actually for keeping customers, especially these days in the whole world of no loyalty, because these days there's so many options. Everybody's always looking to get the best deal. So, how do you really keep customers in this whole crazy competitive world?
So the world is definitely competitive, especially in marketing. And, for the listeners, you're probably, you may not think this, but you're probably pretty good at marketing. Even, there's always room to improve, but you're good at your job there. I wouldn't say that we have no loyalty, right? Because I think about, we can use Starbucks, or I think about Netflix, or I think about, Delta.
Yeah.
These like large, not particularly cool brands like Delta, right? I'm ridiculously loyal to Delta.
Okay.
Not because they have the cheapest tickets, right? I can get cheaper tickets if I just go on, Expedia or whatever. It's because of the customer experience I've had with them.
Right.
So when my grandfather passed away in the beginning of the year, there's a whole, when you've got a family member who's passing away who lives in a completely different state, there's a lot of like back and forth, right? Like, because you're never quite sure when it's going to happen. And Delta, I was traveling, giving keynote speeches at the time, was just crazy fast on Twitter. Like I would send them a DM and be like, "Hey guys, like I need to be in Milwaukee in 12 hours. Can you guys like change my itinerary and get it done?"
Okay.
And they would get it done, and they would waive all their fees, right? And they would just like do whatever it takes. And that's such a meaningful interaction. And by the way, not just that, they would always be sympathetic. The person on the other end of Twitter doesn't just say like, "Thank you for your inquiry, sir. Yes, I have changed your ticket." Like, right. "Oh no, I'm so sorry about that. My own grandfather passed away last year." Like, it's a real human relationship with a company like Delta. Like, come on, and that is really like, the humanization of the brand and building that sense. They lost money on me in some of these transactions because they didn't charge me fees. They probably could have. I would have paid the fee, right? But they just didn't do it. Right. And they could have made me call in, but they adapted to the world that I like to live in, which is, Twitter and Twitter direct messages.
Right. And
they had that loyalty. So that's one way, right? Is like to really invest. And, the opposite end of this model is United, where, you think about United, you don't think about the excellent experiences you've heard about their customers having.
Right.
And for them too, it's like solving for margin, solving for speed, everything else like that. So that's definitely one way, right? Is you have to rethink the way you approach defining the economic value of each interaction. Right. So is it worth me giving this customer, waiving the $25 fee proactively without them even asking,
right,
and being empathetic and investing in people to do social media in order to get that retention.
Right.
And then you've also got companies like, my other favorite model is like Netflix. The reason I love Netflix is that I have rated over 900 movies for Netflix.
Wow.
And most of us would kill to get our customers to fill out a 900 question product survey. The reason I've done it, though, is because I know that when I do it, Netflix is going to use that information to make my experience better.
Okay.
Which means that the longer I stick around with the company, the more valuable my relationship with that company is to me.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you rolled out a better streaming service that was cheaper, I still wouldn't leave Netflix.
Okay.
Because Netflix has done what, the mom and pop corner store used to do with human intelligence, which is just that, Jimmy, the store owner, just knew Ashley, the customer, and what she wanted. Netflix has gone that direction. So Ashley, even if there was a cheaper, whatever, hipper coffee shop that opened up, she wasn't going to leave because Jimmy knew, what she liked.
Yeah.
So there's that sort of like philosophical approach.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the practical application of you've got to have something you can sell more than once, right? So that either is, coffee is a good example because we drink it, get addicted, and have to drink more.
Right. Or
you need to be able to sell a breadth, right? Mm-hmm. So either something that like these subscription models are super popular right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100% because they know that lifetime that subscriptions are the easiest thing for lifetime value nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
They know that they can nail that, but you either have to solve that recurring revenue or you have to solve breadth of revenue and own an entire buyer persona.
Right.
Right. So like if you sell me, if you're like a fix-it e-com shop, right? It doesn't matter that you carry 100,000 different types of drills because Amazon is going to win that game, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to carry 200,000 types of drills.
Right. Definitely.
What matters is that you carry, a good enough drill, but also a good enough hammer and also a good enough selection of nails. And then I come to you for maybe a drill or whatever. And then you can cross sell me into all these different things because you're not a drill bit company.
Mm-hmm.
You are a company that solves my pain of building a deck. Like I'm a handyman, or whether it's professional or personal. Right. So that sort of breadth is something that a lot of e-com shops don't try to do. They try to solve for depth, have really deep product catalog, instead of trying to go wide and own all the different types of things that a persona might want.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned early on, one thing I think that's key that some of these larger companies are doing, like you mentioned the Delta example, and it's the humanization and the personalization of their interaction with their customers. I actually had another guest on previously where we talked about the storytelling aspect of your messaging and how you can incorporate personal stories, either from the people that are working within the company or how your brand got started. All of those things, I think, are definitely great ways to keep people engaged. Because, you mentioned that experience you had with Delta, where as opposed to the just getting kind of a standardized response via Twitter, it was actually a human on the other end that sympathized, with the passing of your grandfather and, related to that, and then gave you more of a warm response. And that, those things go a long way because, like you said, if you have that type of personal interaction with your customers, they're going to, they're, like you said, if there's another company that comes around, even if their pricing is a little bit more competitive, you probably would stay with that company that's giving you that personalization and that interaction because you kind of feel like you're a part of them and they really looked out for you. So that totally makes sense. Now, one of the things that I know product-based companies that are selling actual products, it can be difficult, and you mentioned a couple of things, difficult to try to get customers to, of course, make repeat purchases and repeat sales. I know, of course, we talked about the subscription model is kind of a huge thing, but, I've seen kind of a hit or miss with that and how customers adopt that. I know from my personal experiences, a lot of times, even if it's a product I know I'm going to need more of, I don't necessarily want to just commit to being on the hook every month for that because I know, maybe 1 month I'm not going to use as much of the product. And so if they're struggling with going that subscription route, what are some other things they can do to really kind of increase, repeat sales?
So the subscription model is not necessarily the best way. It's just the easiest for the business.
Right.
Because the math is ludicrously easy. Mm-hmm. It's just what's their subscription rate per month, what's the margin, and what's your churn rate, right? It's very, very simple equation. Mm-hmm. And it's also, you look at the valuations of e-com companies in particular, right? Especially the ones that are publicly traded and things like that. Or just look at the valuations of all these companies. The reason subscription companies tend to get a higher valuation is because both the business and the market have more confidence that that transaction is going to come back. Because you have already pre-agreed to have me rebill you on the 13th of every month, sort of thing. So that's the only reason subscription is superior. If you can solve that problem, right? So they're not going to need it next month, but then the next month after that, they'll need it 2 times or whatever. Without a subscription commitment, you're golden. And this is one of the reasons Amazon actually does have such a high valuation, even though they don't generally, they have some subscription options, but that's not most of their revenue.
Right.
It's because the market is very confident that people who buy from Amazon once are going to keep coming back, and they don't need Amazon to get all of us to agree to monthly terms for them to have that same level of confidence. So then the question is, right, how do you build that relationship with the customer to know that and to nurture that? And part of that does come from humanization. It comes from the understanding of the customer, like Netflix. The better you can understand them, the better you can give decisions. And building your marketing around them, right? Not you. So marketers are why we can't have nice things.
Right.
Right. Marketers ruin the internet. Because the purpose of marketing, right, and marketing automation and online marketing, the thing that was so exciting was that we could scale Larry. So Larry, if you, I don't know if you are going to put my profile picture on this interview, but I'm bald, right? Right. Larry's my barber.
Okay.
But I was not always bald. I would go to Larry and, he'd trim me up, whatever. And I went to him for a couple of years. And he would ask me questions. He knew about my profession. He knew about my wife because, the barbershop is kind of like adult daycare. My wife would drop me off and pick me up later. And he really knew me. And then at one time, he sits me down. He looks at my head and he's like, he's Boston Townie, so he's got the accent. He's like, you got to let it go, kiddo. You got to let it go. You're bald. I'm like, Larry, I'm not bald. He's like, no, bald would look good. What you have doesn't look so good. Okay. And he actually talked me into becoming like a bald guy. Like I shave my head now because of that. And, Jeff Bezos has the famous quote, we don't make money when we sell things. We make money when we help people make purchase decisions. In my experience, like Larry is the best at that because that's not a decision I ever would have made if I didn't have that trust, if he didn't understand me. And part of that trust, by the way, was based off the fact that I had just told him a lot. Right. So I knew that he at least had context because he asked some of these questions. Right. And now the goal of marketing automation and blogging and all this stuff is to let a company scale Larry. Right? How do we have 100,000 of those? Larry can only have like 100 of those regulars. How do we have 100,000 of those interactions per month? What we did instead is we scaled Sam from 2006, where I used those really annoying people in the mall who harass you and try and sell you cell phones.
No, yeah.
I used to train those people.
Okay.
And instead of scaling Larry, we scaled Sam.
Okay.
I can do that pitch in Spanish, even though I don't speak Spanish.
Oh wow.
Because all I did was I learned the pitch, and this is how we treat email marketing, for example, right? The reason I could do the pitch in Spanish is because I didn't need to understand Spanish because I didn't care what the person said next to me.
I see.
I was just going to say the thing, and I was going to keep saying what I was going to say, and they were either going to buy or not.
Right.
And this is how we treat email marketing, right? We send you this email, and then like you either buy or don't. If you don't buy, we send you the next email, and we just keep doing that. And so that's the thing that we've got to get really good at is how do we invest in scaling Larry and don't be Sam from the early 2000s. It was annoying. I was annoying. Be Larry.
Yeah, I totally see that, and that analogy totally makes sense. That the typical relationship a lot of these companies have with their customers post purchase is, they send these blanket emails, and they're just kind of one sided. They're telling them about this and that. Some of it may be of interest, could be of value, but the ultimate thing is, they're really just trying to get them to buy. Where in your example, in your analogy from your barber, Larry, he was really honestly looking out for you. He didn't really, he knew you were a loyal customer, and he just gave you his opinion, as a friend, as a barber. He said, okay, you gotta let it go. You gotta let it go. And that wasn't coming from a space of, being too salesy and anything like that. It was an honest opinion. And so as a business, I think companies really just have to figure out how they can get around being so aggressive in trying to get the next sale, but really just trying to understand their customers and forming that relationship. And it does take time, and it does take some finessing, through the different channels, social media, through their email correspondence. But yeah, I think that is really the main thing. So it's not just a one-sided messaging scheme where you're sending out that blanket email and then, you're waiting for a response. If you don't get a response, then that's kind of it, and things are kind of dropped.
Well, you and I know this. Most email marketing campaigns, or PPC, right? You get a customer and then you spam your entire list 3 times a week with a coupon.
Right.
And that's what we call email marketing. Now, and coupons, and I'm going to admit something embarrassing here. I didn't actually know Larry's name probably for like 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Because he never talked about himself, right? It was always just, talking about me. And that's what built that loyalty. I still go back to him, by the way. Every time I'm in Boston, so like right now, my hair looks kind of weird, but I'm going to Boston soon. Okay. Instead of getting a shave and a haircut here in Palo Alto, I'll wait longer and go back to Boston. Okay. But it's because he spent so much more time talking about me, asking questions about me, than he would spend talking about himself. Right. And it's really getting down to that, right? Like helping people make purchase decisions. And, you mentioned that it's not easy. Before we hit record, you and I were sort of reminiscing about the good old days of e-com. Right. When it was easy, right? Like, even just like spamming Google and stuff, like it was easy. It was. Because there weren't a lot of people doing it, and the platforms weren't very good at stopping us from abusing their services. It was just an easier time. Now, for the people listening, like I have nothing easy to offer you. I can assure you that if you put in the work, that it's going to be a very profitable long-term growth model. Right. But all the easy stuff, anything that's easy, 100,000 other people are also doing, which makes it by definition less effective. Right. That is totally true. And that really is the kind of the lesson. And that I think I almost have to throw out my last question, because I always typically ask my guests, what's one quick win that an e-commerce business can do? What's a quick takeaway? And I think the answer to that is really what you just said. In this whole customer retention world, there really is no quick win. There's nothing quick you can do. It really just takes time. And I think the main thing, and I think one maybe takeaway, is really just taking the time to understand your customers, just like your barber Larry, where he didn't really, you didn't really know his name. He was really more interested in finding out about you. And so I think companies just need to be a little bit slower to pushing that sale and trying to get that sale, and being a little bit more quicker to understanding who their customers are, so they can build that trust and that relationship and that loyalty. And it just comes with time. And so it really is nothing quick you can just do overnight. You just have to be mindful, I think, of that fact. There is a first step that you can do. So fortunately, most marketers in the world are still pretty terrible at this one thing. If any of you folks use Facebook, stop using it for a while. And what you'll notice is you start getting these emails from Facebook, and it's like, hey, like this great moment happened with one of your friends and you missed it because you're not on Facebook. Right. And software companies have a really deep understanding of product usage. Like, is the person actually using the thing you sold them? Which is not something historically that e-com companies spend a lot of time thinking about. So if I'm selling 1/4-inch drill bits, right, the person didn't buy a 1/4-inch drill bit, they bought a 1/4-inch hole. They bought speed to finish their project, etc. Sending that, like after somebody purchases, instead of spamming them 3 times a week with a coupon, finding out whether or not they actually accomplished their goal. Right. If they didn't, sending them a little ebook or whatever on like, here's how to use 1/4-inch drill bits. But then also, I think the big paradigm shift is this idea that like nobody really wants to hear from your marketing team and your business, right? They want to hear from your other customers. It's not my sales and marketing team can beat up your sales and marketing team anymore.
Right.
You look at companies like United, they got a great sales and marketing team, but it's my community of engaged customer fans can obliterate your sales and marketing team.
That's true.
So that's this other bit of LTV, I think, that no one really pays attention to. One, is like, how do I get each customer to pay me more and more often? The other bit is, how do I use the fact that I got you to buy from me to make acquiring my next customer cheaper?
Mm-hmm.
So focus on both of those things, and that is easy to do because no one else is really doing it well right now. So did they actually achieve what they wanted with the product? Because if not, they're not going to buy from you again.
Mm-hmm.
If you signed up for Facebook and you realize that no friends or family that you care about also have Facebook, you wouldn't continue using it because that's the value that it has.
Right.
And then also like collect those customer reviews and use that to power your growth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Use the fact that your customers are happy to acquire more customers. So you're getting your community to fight for your growth instead of your sales and marketing team.
Right. And that's very important these days. And it's because, I mean, we see it with just looking at Amazon. I mean, reviews go so much further than any type of marketing campaign can because, people want to know what other people thought. That's always going to go further. What do other people say? What are people that have gotten their hands on this particular product or this particular service? What do they think? What's their opinion? And, most people put more of a basis on that as a determining factor of whether or not they're going to pull the trigger than really anything else. So that makes a lot of sense. Well, Sam, you've definitely provided a whole wealth of information, and I know our audience is truly going to appreciate it. One of the things that I've recently started doing, I always kind of like to find out a little bit more about our guests. I kind of have one closing fun fact question. What is one thing that our audience would be surprised to know about you?
Something they'd be surprised. Well, I already dropped the thing about I was a talk radio show host. I already said that I was a college dropout. Something that they'd be surprised to know about me. I think the thing that they would be most surprised to know about me is that everybody thinks that there's this like some magic secret that has led to like career growth and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It actually comes from primarily just like self-disruption, self-doubt, and like humility, right? It's like you have to adopt this concept of continually reinventing yourself and always looking out and not building on what you've done in the past as much as looking out for what you can do in the future. When I tell that story about the Hire Me HubSpot thing,
mm-hmm.
the bit that people don't actually know is I was currently like homeless.
Oh, wow.
I was living in the pool house of one of the listeners of my radio show.
Okay. Wow.
While I'm sitting here like running this like Hire Me HubSpot campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's not what matters, right? What matters is that you do what everybody else does, you get what everybody else gets. So you have to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever's like, whatever your current challenge is, if it's stressing you out, it's probably because you're evaluating it through the lens of your past experience.
Mm-hmm.
Evaluate it through a different lens, and you may find that it changes your perspective.
True. Yeah, those are definitely some great words of wisdom, and I appreciate you sharing that. So that is awesome. So Sam, if any of our listeners to the podcast want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Sure. You can Google anything even close to my last name, Mallikarjunan. You should find me.
Okay.
Fortunately, everybody else with that last name is like an engineer or a doctor, and they're not very good at SEO.
Got it.
You can also find me on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I answer every message I get. And you can check out birdeye.com as well, and you can find my page there and reach out.
All right. That sounds awesome. Well, thanks again, Sam, for joining us today on the e-commerce marketing podcast.
Thanks, Arlen.
Thank you for listening to the e-commerce marketing podcast. You need to get more feedback and reviews from your customers and improve your customer retention? We have made it easy to do all of this with our advanced customer feedback software. Just visit getosi.com/feedback and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com/feedback.